Welcome back. The territorial crisis tearing Spain apart continues to escalate. Prosecutors are likely to seek a European arrest warrant for Catalonia's former leader. Accused of rebellion, Carlos Puigdemont and several ex-ministers were meant to face court. But as Lucy Fielder reports, they fled to Belgium.
A European arrest warrant for Catalonia's former president looks ever more likely. Spain's state prosecutor requesting one for Carlos Puigdemont after he failed to turn up at a High Court hearing Thursday. He's charged with rebellion, sedition and misuse of public funds and is now in Belgium with 4 members of his cabinet. Madrid sacked Puigdemont and his government for declaring independence on Friday. 15 Catalan leaders showing up in court Thursday, all but one refusing to answer questions on their role in an illegal October referendum on secession. 9 have been remanded in custody pending an investigation. Thousands have taken to the streets of Barcelona in recent weeks, demonstrating both for and against breaking away from Spain. Madrid has called a snap election for the autonomous region in December. An arrest warrant will make it pretty much impossible for Puigdemont to stand. And there are some signs of support for secession waning. This demonstration in support of the pro-independence leaders Thursday failing to attract a big crowd. As the crisis wears on, Catalonia stands divided and deeply resented by the rest of Spain.
A U.S. judge has ordered indicted former Trump campaign advisors Paul Manafort and Richard Gates to remain under home arrest, at least for now. Their lawyers insist the defendants pose no flight risk, but prosecutors argue they do. District Judge Amy Berman Jackson will consider new bail conditions on Monday. She also sharply warned the lawyers not to speak about the case outside of court, saying this is a criminal trial, not a public relations campaign. The two pleaded not guilty on Monday to a 12-count indictment with charges including conspiracy to launder money and conspiracy against the U.S. Meanwhile, former U.S. presidential candidate Hillary Clinton warned the U.S. to stand up to Russia. She said otherwise it will encourage Russian President Vladimir Putin to try to reconstitute power. She pointed to new sanctions against Russia that Congress passed earlier this year. Trump grudgingly signed the bill into law behind closed doors and still has not implemented it.
So what's the lesson from that? The lesson is you can get away with attacking America, sowing discord and divisiveness, affecting our election, and this president and administration are not going to hold you accountable. That's very, very dangerous.
Well, the U.S. president may have scored a much-needed win on Capitol Hill. Republicans have finally unveiled legislation for a long-delayed tax plan, and as Trump promised in his election campaign, it's promising deep cuts. Andy Sullivan reports.
This is it. President Trump's promise of deep tax cuts taking a big step forward as Republicans in the House of Representatives unveil a plan to cut the average family's tax bill by $1,100 a year.
That $1,182 more for the average family, that will help you put more money away for college. It will help you save for retirement.
The plan would dramatically overhaul the tax code for the first time in more than 30 years. Ways and Means Committee Chairman Kevin Brady says the plan will boost jobs.
With this bill, there's relief for real American families. There's relief for American workers, and there's tax relief for our hard-working job creators of all sizes.
Republicans say the plan will cut taxes by $6 trillion over 10 years. Independent experts say that could add trillions of dollars to the national debt. Brady hopes to lessen the impact by scaling back popular breaks for state and local taxes and by capping the popular write-off for mortgage interest. The plan slashes rates for corporations and small businesses. It does not lower the rate paid by the wealthiest Americans, though it does get rid of other taxes aimed at the rich, such as the alternative minimum tax, which Trump has had to pay in the past. Republicans hope to move it quickly through Congress before its many opponents can pick it apart, eager to show voters they can deliver on their biggest promises after failing to repeal Obamacare.
To Cuba now, where the country is sharply denying it had any hand in attacking U.S. diplomats or their families in Havana, saying anyone who thinks otherwise is, quote, deliberately lying. A number of staff claim to have suffered sudden hearing loss in apparent audio attacks. President Trump says Cuba is responsible and has threatened to take action, including tightening travel and trade. But Cuba's foreign minister says the U.S. is politicizing the issue and has no evidence to prove its accusations.
The Cuban government
is willing to continue having a respectful dialogue as well as a serious and objective cooperation with the United States, and is committed to conclude the investigation to clarify these events. The U.S. government should stop politicizing this issue, which could lead to an escalation and take bilateral relations further back, which will have harmful consequences for both peoples and countries.
Elsewhere now, this week marks 100 years since a short statement which to this day divides millions of people. Britain's Balfour Declaration endorsed the establishment of a Jewish homeland in the Middle East. It eventually helped establish the State of Israel, and with it, a seemingly never-ending regional conflict. Emily Withett reports.
It's an anniversary that for some stirs celebration, for others mourning and anger. 100 years ago, Britain endorsed the establishment of a Jewish homeland in the Middle East. Known as the Balfour Declaration, after the foreign minister who penned it, it's seen as a major step in creating modern Israel in 1948. It's also seen as the beginning of 100 years of conflict. By invitation from British Prime Minister Theresa May, her Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu is commemorating the centenary in London with a banquet, while a different kind of British Tea Party is playing out in Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank. Here, British street artist Banksy has offered a royal apology for Palestinians engraved on Israel's barrier. And that's what Palestinians want, an apology, demanding Britain recognises the move that led to decades of dispossession and suffering. In Israel, Arthur Balfour is admired. He has streets named after him in Tel Aviv, while Palestinians see his declaration as a promise by Britain to hand over land it didn't own. On his way to the UK, Netanyahu called on Palestinians to accept history.
The Palestinians say that the Balfour Declaration was a tragedy. That wasn't a tragedy. What's been tragic is their refusal to accept this 100 years later. I hope they change their mind, because if they do, we can move forward finally to making peace between our two peoples.
But as Theresa May and Netanyahu dine, protesters are gathering in London, Jordan and elsewhere, calling on Israel and others to recognise the Palestinian claim to statehood.
To some news from the entertainment world now. Hollywood star Kevin Spacey is said to be seeking evaluation and treatment, according to his representative, following multiple allegations of sexual misconduct. No details on the nature of the treatment were provided. At least 2 other men have accused Spacey of harassment after actor Anthony Rapp claims Spacey tried to seduce him in 1986 when he was 14. It's not clear whether the 6th season of the Netflix show House of Cards featuring Spacey would go ahead after his decision to seek treatment. All right, time now for sports news. Tennis first, and Rafael Nadal's quest for a maiden Paris Masters title continues after reaching the quarterfinals. But he had his work cut out for him against Pablo Cuevas, who managed to take the 2nd set in a tiebreak. The Spaniard regained his composure, though, and eventually won 6-3, 6-7, 6-3, ensuring he'll end the year as world #1. Meanwhile, David Goffin was knocked out in the 3rd round, but still became the first Belgian to qualify for the Tour finals. Only 1 spot is left in the 8-man event in London, while Martin Del Potro can clinch it if he reaches the Final 4 in Paris. The next Rugby World Cup may still be a while away, but teams now know who they'll be facing. Japan will host all 48 matches of the 2019 tournament. It kicks off on September the 21st when reigning champs New Zealand tackle South Africa. Japan will take on a European side in Pool A, while Pool C has been dubbed the Group of Death, featuring England, Tonga, France and Argentina. This is the first World Cup in Asia, and organisers are hoping the draw is more balanced this time round. To baseball now, and celebrations roll on in the city of Houston after the Astros clinched their first ever World Series. And they did it in style with a 5-1 rout of the Los Angeles Dodgers in Game 7. The victory has turned into one of the great sports stories, with the city turning to the Astros in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey. 9 weeks later, they delivered. Manager A.J. Hinch says it's just what Houston needed.
Now, this is a team that wanted to win the division. We'd been knocked out of the division a couple of years in a row. But we never lost perspective of what was important. I saw these guys at the community center the day off that the Mets gave us on Friday night. I saw these guys do good deeds for people as they start to rebuild the city. And I think that's why the city fell in love with this team all over again, and why we had that Houston strong strength that carried us a long way.
All right, UFC legend Conor McGregor wants to unseat Cristiano Ronaldo as the world's highest-earning athlete by 2018. From penniless plumber to the face of mixed martial arts, McGregor's next goal is hitting the $1 billion mark. His rise to fame was charted in documentary Notorious, which premiered this week. The 29-year-old champion says fame hadn't changed him and that he was very proud of his team and their achievements. And finally, you might have heard of the film Escape from Alcatraz. It featured a young Clint Eastwood attempting a daring escape from the infamous San Francisco jail. Well, in the Israeli city of Ramat Gan, a female hippo might have taken a page out of his book. She escaped from the city's central safari zoo through the most inconceivable outlet, the front door. This to the astonishment of a local guard. But unlike Eastwood, this hippo seemed to have a change of heart, turning around and slowly making her way back. How's that for a plot twist, Clint? And that's all we have for you for now. Join us again at 11:30 for an update on the stories shaping your world. See you later.